Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the Thanksgiving cactus is going to be repotted. The last time I worked on the Thanksgiving cactus was right after I was trying to get it to bloom for the holidays. And the cat had gotten to the leaves and it was really not going to be blooming out much more. So I had gotten a bloom and I just ended up cutting it all back. Since then, we've got all this new growth. We've got about a ½ inch of growth on many of these tips. I have noticed some of the sections of the trees that are before the new growth seem a little bit thin, almost like they were almost dehydrating a little bit, getting a little dry. Bottom of the trunk looks real good. It feels still firm. But it's been in this pot, I believe, for a couple of years. I want to give it some fresh soil so I know that it's going to drain really well and so we don't overwater the holiday cactus. One of the reasons why I'm doing this now is because recently I worked on my PAs and I had a little bit of roots in the PAs that looked like they had dealt with perhaps some subtle root rot, not the whole tree, but I was wondering if I was overwatering. So I'm really curious to see what this root system is looking like. And one of the other reasons why I noticed perhaps that the percolation, the water's not soaking through the pot as much, is I fertilized this last fall before I brought it in. And the fertilizer, if you can tell here, the fertilizer has turned into kind of more of a dirt, it's kind of disintegrated a little bit, but we've got this real powdery dirt here. And I think that's blocking some of the percolation as well, and it just kind of holds the moisture up at the top. So I'm just very curious what it's going to look like through and through. So let's go ahead and get this out of the pot and we'll see what the roots of this Thanksgiving cactus looks like. Only a few moments into this process, I'm noticing how hard it is to really dig down into this pot. So it really seems like the soil has just really kind of almost like, look at that, look, that little chunk of soil right there. Like it's really crusted together. And yeah, look at that, big chunk at a time. There's some roots that are in there, but just falling right off of the structure. So I'm just kind of nervous about where this is at and the health of this soil. So again, anytime I'm looking at my trees, I'm trying to figure out, letting the tree speak to me. And, a lot of people will say that the tree will just kind of tell you a lot what you can do to the tree. And we want to work on healthy trees, but sometimes we have to figure out, well, maybe why isn't that tree as healthy as I think it might be? Now, this is a pot that doesn't have drain holes in here. The drain holes are in this part of the pot, right? It's one of those cheaper pots that you buy in a store where it's glued, secured, sealed right to the tray. And so there's no wire holding this in. And this does not want to come out right now still. So this is one of those situations where the tree is not dying per se, but I don't think it's in the best situation for it. And so I think it was a good idea to come in here and investigate and see how we can improve this tree. Ooh, there is wire in here, so even I didn't remember that. Look at that. No wonder it's not coming out right away. As I dug a little bit further here, there's the little glow of wire right down here. So I want to be careful not to destroy some of the roots here. But there's some wire. There we go, right there. There's some wire right there. So we can cut that out and see. I do not recall wiring this in, and again, for the main idea that this is a pot that doesn't have big exposed drainage holes, but of course that just means that these wires might have been placed in there already. There we go. Aha! There it comes out. So there we have it. There are some wires in there that I was able to slide on through and get in there. I probably slid it on through this way and was able to get that wire in there. So interesting. I don't recall doing that. We're probably going to put it in a new pot today, so I don't think I'm going to reuse that same one. Now, again, if I look at this structure, I've got these clumps of what looks like old roots. I've got these clumps. There's not a lot of expansive roots on this tree. Just kind of these clumps of roots that fell off here as I was trying to get this out of the pot. So for this big tree that has this nice big now trunk, this kind of hard woodier looking type substance, this was almost like this particular fertilizer on this particular pot just seemed to create more of a hardened kind of clay chunk of soil. And so I don't know if it was maybe the best for this tree. But it is a Thanksgiving cactus. Cactuses, the Portulacaria afra plants that I have, all these trees that hold their moisture in the trunk of the tree, the limbs of the trees, the foliage of the tree. Can get by with very little roots. You can take cuttings of many of these trees and just let them dry out completely, the calloused bottom part from where you clipped it, and then you go ahead and you just then put it in soil and you mist it at first, and eventually it starts to sprout out roots. And this tree itself right now, if you actually got zoomed up real close to a couple of spots, there's a little spot left here that I haven't rubbed off, but there's a spot right here where there's little like aerial roots trying to form right there. They get the little fuzzy roots and you can see them growing. There's some right here as well, right above my wooden chopstick right here. Probably can't see on the camera. I can see on my end, but perhaps not on your end. I'll see in post-production. So not a really big whopping structure of roots down here that I expected with this big old Thanksgiving cactus. I'd have to go back to my former videos for this tree, go look at the playlist for the Thanksgiving cactus and see where this has gone, what iterations of repotting and roots it has gone through. So there's the tree, and again, not super dense with roots, but there's roots there nonetheless, and I believe it'll be just fine when we put it in its new pot. There's no major roots facing straight down. I'm not going to trim a whole lot of roots on this because, again, I want to make sure that this has a nice successful repot, because this would be better off in the summertime when it's super warm. But this thing looks like it's shriveling up a little bit, right? It looks old, and it looks like this has got to be a new situation to bring this one back to health. Again, the trunk still looks really pretty strong, but some of these branches in here are looking a little bit thin and a little bit like they're just not as strong. So we may have to cut back a little bit and kind of start over, almost like a trunk chop on this tree. I'm a little nervous right now, to be completely honest with y'all, and that's why I'm doing this operation now. I think it was perfectly viable for me to dig into this tree because it just wasn't showing the same health as the other two, and this one was repotted older. So I think these are the three best candidates for the new pot. Now, I'm going from a much bigger, deeper 2-inch pot to a 1-inch or less. This one seems to be the deepest, but there's room to grow in all three of these. So we have a little bit of color with this green. I like that it has the browner feet down below. The brown feet kind of match the trunk of the tree. And then the green is not a match with the foliage, but it doesn't have to match perfectly. It's got some blues in there. And when these new buds come out, they're always that red look. So it's kind of this red, blue, green kind of combo here. So this isn't too bad. I'm not sure if that's the best fit for this one. We've got this kind of just brown gray pot. It's got a little bit lighter color in the bottom. It almost looks like it's too muted of a color, so I don't know if the color is the best. And then I got this brown one that does match the trunk a little bit better, but you know, we don't always want to match the trunk because then the tree kind of hides. But boy, for the blooms of this to be red with this brown pot, it would certainly pop. So there's the brown pot. I like that it's darker. This one's darker than the trunk, so the trunk doesn't get as lost. So that one's darker. This one's a little bit this kind of muted, kind of darker tan, but I think the trunk gets lost in that. So, do I want to keep it colorful, like I had the blue before? Do I want to keep it colorful? Or do I want to have it more matted and have this just this nice size for this tree? And have a darker brown so the trunk is a little bit more of a pop compared to this muted color. I think everything else I have down here is too big. I do have this really fun, but it's much thinner, old, and again, it's a sand color like the desert. Look at that pot. But look at how big it is. I mean, I could fit a forest of 3 or 4 in here. I just want this to be a solo tree. So this right there, it's just way too big of a pot, but I love that color. That sand color is kind of fun. So this won't be best long term in either of these two pots, but I think for the rest of the winter season and next summer with this new soil, we'll let it recover in these pots, and I think we'll be much better off. So just double checking here. I also did think of one of my white pots. I have a couple of these whites, and so here's that kind of desert sand light color. That's kind of fun too. It's a little bit smaller. It's a rectangle shape with curved edges though, so it's a little bit smoother, and it's got this little bit of red hint right here, this kind of reddish clay, which kind of feeds off of the red buds a little bit. It makes the tree stand out a little bit more. It's kind of got a nice little pop to it. It's not as deep as this one though, so it's even shallower. So if I put some soil in here, boy, it's gonna sit right at that level with not much soil below it. So I don't know if that's just too shallow for right now for this pot. If you look at the trunk of this tree, the diameter of this bottom section is pushing 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and we're not 1.5 inches, 2 inches deep. So the deeper pot would just seem to lend a little bit better, a better feel for this a little bit bigger tree. So I like that pot. I haven't found the perfect tree for it yet. I don't love this pot. I don't love any of them. They're not like all speaking to me really true, but it's going to be still one of these two. I like this one because it adds a little bit of color and pizzazz, but this one's a little bit deeper, and it might be a better recovery pot. So if I'm thinking about recovery, I think we'll go with this pot. This one's a little bit shallower. Let's just put it in this pot for a nice recovery. So get some things organized, and we'll put this thing into a pot. So I did make the decision to go with the darker brown pot. Gave it a little bit of a rub down here. There's a little bit of a, hard water deposits on there. We're gonna sprinkle a little bit of soil in there. We have the drainage screens all ready to go. And then we just have our tree. The tree goes a little bit more this way, so to cover up that negative space. I'm not going to wire this one today. I'm just going to put it right in here, put some rocks on top of it, some bonsai soil rather, and then a rock maybe to hold it in place, and that's going to be our tree. So you're technically looking at the front from what I've had it as the front before, because you can see this branch nicely in the background after these two split in front here, and this one's in the back. This also could be the front. So either way with this tree, I think we're fine down the road, but we're going to keep that as the front right now. Let's get some more soil. My root base was pretty flat. I don't have to do too much tamping in here. This is just getting soil in here for a nice level of soil. And now, right now, again, the importance I think of me working on this tree right now was that it was looking a little sickly. Now, we don't want to repot and do a lot of heavy hard work on our trees when they're sickly, but there was something going on with the soil. I felt it was crusty and thick and almost clay-like, and was anything penetrating. It certainly was dry here when we repotted it, so I haven't been overwatering this too much, although I purposely did not water it yesterday or today, knowing I was going to repot it. So it has had 48 hours in my basement, which again has a dehumidifier on to make sure it's nothing more than 50% humidity, and it's underneath the bright lights over there. Maybe I'm not watering these enough, but that soil was not really conducive, I don't think, for some really good root growth. It was real thick and small particles kind of chunked together, and it almost was like a clay-like substance when I took it apart. So we're going to go ahead and give this a really nice little spraying of water here, because the roots were completely dried out. I've got new foliage up here, so I've got foliage to support the roots if I give them a little water. My only question at this point is if I was going to do any trimming or not. Now, what scares me is if I go down too much, is that too much stress on the tree? And I think I don't want to mess with it right now. But this part of the branch right here is a little skinny. This one right here is probably the skinniest that you're looking at right in the front. And then the other ones don't look quite as bad up here. This one got a little bit skinny too, but there's new growth on here. There's 3 pieces of growth on this side, so this might die off, I'm not sure. This one looks pretty good. There's all this new growth up here. So there's growth up here, there's cellular movement and activity all through this tree. It's just that this looks a little bit thin right there, and we have to hope that it recovers and plumps up a little bit. Now, this one right here I could cut off, because this one right here, this one looks pretty toast. I don't know how much life that had back in there, but it is green where I just cut it. Look at that. That's a good sign. Right there, if I tip it, all my rocks will fall out, but it's green right there. There's plenty of moisture still in this shriveled up branch, so that's a good sign. And of course, look at all this growth, and this one looks skinny. I think we're going to be fine. So when you have a tree and you watch it and you look at it every day and you're noticing something about the tree, there's maybe some bugs on it. We're looking for scale, we're looking for aphids, we're looking for fungus, and something's not right. There are times when we have to go in and maybe see what's going on in the soil. In this case, I'm so glad I did. So take care of your trees in that way, right? Take some investigation. Now I have 2 other secondary Thanksgiving cactus. They're not my favorite. They've just been cuttings from this one. This is still my favorite with the best ramification, and I'm hoping it's going to become a nice, big, beautiful tree again someday with more blooms. But if I didn't take care of this today and I waited another month, maybe I wouldn't have this tree later on this summer. So let's get some water into this and we'll call this one done. Now, if I cut off all of this green foliage and put it in this pot, I would mist this more at first, and I might even be risking it a little bit giving it a water, but I want to give this a nice new refreshing water in those roots that are super dry. There's a lot of moisture still up here, so we don't need a ton, but I do want to get these rocks a little bit moist. Get some rocks down into this root structure down there a little bit, and then the water is really going to do a good job of draining through this new coarse bonsai soil. It's draining through already. Okay, so there we go. So we've gone through and we've got that draining on there, right through there, get rid of some of the dust particles. But now this bonsai tree, I think, has a much greater chance of recovery in this pot as compared to that blue one where it was all getting thick and chunky. So we'll put this back up on the shelf, and we're going to water this thing and know that the water is going to drain right through it really fast. So most bonsai, in almost every situation, especially with pines and even these dry succulents, they don't like to sit in water. So we have this coarse bonsai soil, so we control how much water it has, right? We want that balance of oxygen and water in our soil, right? And so generally we have what, 50% soil or more, and then there's 50% water in there, 50% or 25% water, 25% air, you know, roughly in there. Maybe a little bit more on the soil, a little bit less on the water and the oxygen. But the coarse soil allows for this really, really nice drainage. So there I've lost almost all the water. The rocks are subtly wet. The roots will have a nice little revival here. All this growth will continue, and we might make some cuts later on this winter if we see some weird scraggly growth, but I want to see if this is all going to plump up and be revived. So there we have the Thanksgiving cactus. Now this is the cactus that to this day continues to get the most views on my channel. My update from a year or so ago has got now over 26, pushing 27,000 views. And the original one that got all the big views in the beginning was 23,000. So for some reason, the viewers of my channel have really loved this cactus, or have been looking at this Thanksgiving cactus to kind of check it out. And so I really want to take care of it, and I want to make sure that it doesn't go to the bonsai graveyard, because that would be horrible. We'll put it back on the shelf and call it there. Let me see if I have some updates for you, and we'll wrap it up today. We are into the second weekend of January already, and on a recent update in the last week or so, I believe I showed a PA update with that I had defoliated one of my PAs, and there were a couple of shoots sticking out. And I think there were 2 just a week ago. And I wanted to show you this PA a week later. And if you can see, there's 1, 2 bigger ones, but then there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 right here. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 30, 40, 50. There are over 50, 60 new buds on the Portulacaria afra. So I think defoliating this was a fabulous idea. I might do that with some of my some more of my PAs here coming up soon. But I'm going to be able to see where this is going to reach out now and get new growth. It's all going to be fine little, really small leaves and really kind of fun to see. So I just wanted to show you that. Just a week later, I think, from the last update, we have over 60 buds, and there were maybe 2 to 4 last time. So update number 1. And then update number 2 for everybody. So, thank you so much for everybody's concern and comments. Everybody's been really intrigued and really wanting to know what's going on with the Premnas and the powdery mildewy, the powdery substance on the tree. And this is the one I was the most concerned about, because for whatever reason, I like this tree. This tree just is kind of funky looking to me, and even though we have the critter chop, I keep reminding people of that. This is one of the ones that was critter chopped, and this is really exposed hardwood underneath, heartwood inside, and it's trying to heal over here, but that would take years. And so when you look at it from this side, kind of like this, it might be okay. This side, it has all the chop, but we got these 2 trees that were hugging each other, and it's making one silhouette of a tree, which I love that concept. If we separated these 2, they'd be kind of wonky and different looking, but now it makes this nice little canopy, so it's kind of fun. But big deal on that, Dave, what's the update? So the update is we treated this with the Grow Safe. And so the Grow Safe product, I can't say that it's eradicated the mildewy substance on this particular tree. However, it's already darker green than it was before, and if you look back at the last time I did the Premna update or worked with the Premna for this situation, I was in my shower spraying all these guys and gals, and the tree looks healthier. It just visually from a distance looks healthier already, which is a really good sign. All the new growth is starting to fill in slowly. I think in a couple more weeks, this would look really puffy and green and really lovely. Now, is there still some remnants of the mildew? There definitely is. There's some smaller leaves in here. There's a smaller leaf in here, for instance. There's 2 of them on this back one here. This leaf right here on my finger, I don't know if that's going to come in view at all, but that right there has some of that white powdery mildew on that one right there. I'm taking that one off, right? There's the one on this back one right here. I'm going to take that right off. So I took those right off. Now, the 4 or 5 or 6 leaves after that have none of the powder on it right here. No powder on these 5, 6 right here. This little cluster of leaves right here, there's no new mildew powdery stuff on the top 5 or 6 leaves there, but there's a little bit on the older one that's right here. I take that one off, maybe that's going to be gone. This one right here has a little bit on there, but the newer leaves do not. So I think the treatment of the Grow Safe has done something positive for the tree. So what I think I'm going to do, because it's not completely gone, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to treat this again in another week, because I think it said every couple of weeks you could give it a treatment if you're in that mild to medium concern, not preventative, but mild issues. I'm going to go ahead and let this go for about another week or so maybe, and then we're going to spray it one more time with the Grow Safe product, and I'll put that picture up again on the video here, the Grow Safe product, and we'll spray the trees one more time. And then if after that I'm still not liking what I'm seeing as far as a complete lack of the powdery mildew, I'm going to go ahead and try some of the next material I have is, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it right now, but it's a systemic. You put some powdery substance on the soil, and when you water it, it goes into the soil and it gets in there through the roots into the tree and gets rid of or prevents moldy, mildew, fungusy type things. Infused. The product is infused, and I will show that product when I use it in a future video, but it is named Infuse. So right now, I think GrowSafe has certainly made a dent on it, so we'll put another application on in about a week, and I think we'll be in better shape for sure. And right now, what I could do, and what I probably should do, is that if there are a couple of these leaves that still seem super, super mildewy, or got some powdery substance on there that doesn't look like it annihilated it, I can cut that right off. There's one that fell in my soil here. Make sure I get rid of that. So I throw that away in my bad pile, not keep it in here with the good stuff. These two leaves right here are going to be gone because they have a little substance on there, it looks like. The rest of them are really pretty good. Some real shiny leaves. Some are like on the verge of maybe looking like they could turn on me. So we're just going to wait and see for another week. This one I don't like. That one I don't like. And again, remember, when it's fallen into the pot like this, I want to make sure I get all the leaves out of the pot so it doesn't share more of the powdery mildew stuff or the fungus on this tree at a later time. Okay, and I have a branch right here that's just not budding back right now. I'll cut it a little bit shorter. This one is a bar branch that I can just eliminate that one now. So again, when you work on the tree like this, you're finding some new things about it. We can go ahead and cut that one off. Yeah, so the good thing about this tree is it continues to grow, which is super nice. This one is not doing anything, and it's a bar branch for back here. We'll just let that one go. All right. So I think we have a product, GrowSafe, that's kicking it into gear a little bit and doing okay. So we're going to put this back on the shelf, keep an eye on it, and we'll give you the updates as I have them. Update number 2, the Premna with the GrowSafe treatment. Well, that is going to do it for the show. The updates, the trees are all back on the shelves, and we got that Thanksgiving cactus in some really nice, well-drained soil. And I think the tree is going to be super happy as a result of that. And of course, more updates in the future on that one. So that's going to do it. So take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we're going to see you again really, really soon. All right, bye-bye.